As she mocked the human's nunchucks 1 minute later, her armor lay in pieces. The galactic arena hummed with the energy of 10,000 spectators from across the known systems. Beings of every conceivable form filled the crystalline viewing chambers that surrounded the combat floor. The Tournament of Worlds had drawn warriors from the farthest reaches of space to compete for the ultimate prize, recognition as the greatest fighter in the galaxy. Commander Vex of the Altarian Empire stood at the edge of the arena floor, adjusting her ceremonial combat armor. The polished metal gleamed under the artificial suns that illuminated the battlefield. Her forearms moved with practiced precision as she checked each weapon mounted on her frame. Plasma blades hummed at her sides, while energy shields flickered to life around her forearms. She had trained for this moment her entire life. Across the arena, a human male emerged from the preparation chambers. He wore simple cloth garments that looked almost primitive compared to the advanced armor systems of his opponents. In his hands he carried 2 short sticks connected by a chain. The crowd fell silent as they observed this strange weapon. Many had never seen anything like it before. Vex allowed herself a low chuckle that resonated through her vocal translator. The human looked so small and vulnerable standing there with his crude wooden implements. She had studied the combat records of every species in the tournament. Humans were newcomers to the galactic stage, and their fighting techniques were considered antiquated by most military analysts. They relied on physical prowess rather than advanced technology. The arena announcer's voice boomed across the space in a dozen different languages. The final match of the tournament would pit the defending champion Commander Vex against the human representative Jake Morrison. The crowd roared its approval as both fighters took their positions at opposite ends of the circular platform. Vex activated her full combat systems. Her armor's targeting computer began analyzing her opponent's movements, while her weapons powered up to maximum capacity. She had defeated the galaxy's finest warriors to reach this point. The crystalline warriors of Beta Prime had fallen to her superior tactics. The massive stone beings from the outer rim had crumbled under her relentless assault. This human would be no different. Jake stood motionless in the center of the arena. His weapon hung loose in his grip as he studied his opponent. The nunchucks moved slightly with each breath he took. He had trained with these weapons since childhood under the guidance of masters who had preserved ancient combat arts. While other humans had embraced energy weapons and powered armor, Jake had chosen a different path. The starting signal echoed across the arena. Vex immediately launched herself forward using her armor's propulsion systems. She covered the distance between them in seconds, while her plasma blades ignited in brilliant arcs of energy. The crowd gasped at the spectacular display of advanced combat technology. Jake remained perfectly still until the last possible moment. Then he moved with fluid grace that seemed to defy the laws of physics. His nunchucks spun in complex patterns as he sidestepped Vex's initial assault. The wooden weapons traced intricate geometries through the air, while Jake's feet found perfect balance on the arena floor. Vex's first strike missed completely as Jake flowed around her like water. She spun quickly and launched a second attack with her off-hand weapon. The plasma blade should have connected with the human's torso, but instead met only empty air. Jake had dropped low and swept his leg in a wide arc that caught Vex behind her primary support limb. The Altarian warrior stumbled but quickly recovered. Her armor's stabilization systems corrected her balance, while her targeting computer recalibrated. She had underestimated this human's speed and agility. No matter, she would simply overwhelm him with superior firepower. Both fighters circled each other warily. The crowd watched in fascination as these two completely different fighting styles prepared to clash again. Advanced alien technology would face ancient human martial arts in a contest that would determine the fate of the tournament. Vex raised all four of her arms and activated every weapon system simultaneously. Plasma bolts erupted from her shoulder, mounted cannons, while her blade weapons carved deadly patterns through the air. The arena floor around Jake exploded in brilliant flashes of energy as the barrage intensified. Through the chaos of lights and explosions, Jake moved like a dancer. His nunchucks spun faster, now creating a defensive barrier that seemed impossible to penetrate. The wooden weapons struck plasma bolts out of the air, while Jake's body bent and twisted to avoid the energy blades. Each movement flowed seamlessly into the next, as if choreographed by some unseen master. The crowd fell silent in amazement. They had never witnessed such a display of pure skill and timing. The human was not just surviving Vex's assault, but actually gaining ground. Step by step, he advanced toward the Altarian warrior while maintaining his defensive pattern. Vex's confidence began to waver as her weapons failed to find their mark. Her armor's power systems were draining rapidly under the sustained assault. The targeting computer provided no useful solutions, as Jake's movements followed no predictable pattern. He fought with instinct and training that had been refined over countless generations. Finally, Jake's nunchucks found their opening. The chain connecting the two sticks wrapped around one of Vex's plasma blades, while the opposite end struck her wrist joint with devastating precision. The weapon flew from her grip and clattered across the arena floor. Before she could react, Jake's other nunchuck struck her shoulder armor with a sharp crack. The sound was barely audible above the crowd's gasps, but its effect was immediate. A hairline fracture appeared in the advanced composite material that formed Vex's primary protection. The crack spread rapidly across the armor's surface as structural integrity failed at the molecular level. Vex stared in disbelief as her supposedly impenetrable armor began to crumble. The human had struck at exactly the right angle, with precisely the correct amount of force to exploit a weakness that even her own engineers had not known existed. Pieces of metal and ceramic fell away from her body like autumn leaves. Jake pressed his advantage with a series of lightning-fast strikes. His nunchucks moved in patterns that seemed to multiply before Vex's eyes. Each impact found another critical structural point until her entire armor system began to disintegrate. Energy shields flickered and died while weapon systems powered down one by one. The Altarian warrior found herself completely exposed and defenseless. Her advanced technology had proven useless against an opponent who fought with nothing but skill and determination. She looked down at the pile of broken armor pieces scattered around her feet and realized that she had been defeated by what she had dismissed as primitive weapons. Jake stepped back and lowered his nunchucks. The fight was over. The arena erupted in cheers as the crowd recognized what they had just witnessed. A human armed with simple wooden weapons had defeated the most advanced warrior in the galaxy through pure martial skill. The tournament officials approached to verify the results, while medical teams attended to Vex's minor injuries. The Altarian commander looked at Jake with new respect. She had learned a valuable lesson about underestimating opponents based on their choice of weapons or technology. In the days that followed, Jake's victory would be studied by military academies across the galaxy. His fighting techniques would be analyzed and debated by experts who struggled to understand how such simple weapons could overcome advanced armor systems. The human had proven that skill and training could triumph over technology when applied with perfect precision. The Tournament of Worlds had crowned its new champion. Jake Morrison stood before the assembled representatives of 100 worlds holding his nunchucks high. The simple wooden weapons had carried him to victory against impossible odds. The crowd roared its approval as confetti fell from the arena ceiling. As Jake accepted his trophy, he thought about the masters who had taught him, They had preserved ancient knowledge while others embraced modern technology. Their wisdom had guided him through countless hours of training and preparation. This victory belonged to them as much as to him. The galaxy would never again underestimate the fighting spirit of humanity. Jake's triumph had shown that determination and skill could overcome any obstacle. The nunchucks that had been mocked by his opponent now commanded respect from warriors across the known systems. Commander Vex approached Jake after the ceremony. She bowed deeply in the traditional Altarian gesture of respect. Her broken armor had been replaced with simple cloth garments similar to those worn by the human champion. She asked if he would be willing to teach her some of his techniques. Jake smiled and nodded. The sharing of knowledge between species was one of the greatest benefits of galactic civilization. He would be honored to pass on some of the wisdom his own masters had given him. The circle of learning would continue across the stars. The arena began to empty as spectators returned to their homeworlds. They carried with them the memory of an incredible battle that had changed their understanding of combat forever. The human champion had proven that sometimes the oldest ways were still the best ways. Jake packed his nunchucks carefully in their traditional case. The weapons had served him well throughout his journey to the championship. Tomorrow, he would begin the long trip back to Earth where other students waited to learn from his experiences. The ancient martial arts would continue to evolve and grow under his guidance. The Tournament of Worlds had ended, but its impact would be felt for generations. Young warriors across the galaxy would study Jake's techniques and incorporate them into their own fighting styles. The fusion of ancient wisdom and modern training methods would create new forms of combat that honored both tradition and innovation. As the arena lights dimmed, Jake took one last look at the battlefield, where he had achieved his greatest victory. The memory would stay with him forever. He had proven that a human with simple weapons could stand against the universe and emerge victorious. The nunchucks had shattered more than just armor that day. They had shattered preconceptions about what was possible.